All right, hello, Algebra 1. So today you got this review worksheet to help you study for your quiz tomorrow. I figured I'd take some time to go over the answers with you in case you are having a little trouble. So for all these, we are factoring. The directions are all the same. Factor the common factor out of each expression. Some of them will factor out just a number. Some of them will factor out just a variable. And then a couple of them, I think two, we will factor out both a number and a variable. So let's take a look at number 1 together here. We've got negative 20x minus 10. Now, right off the bat, I notice both of these are negative. I see a 10 and a 20. What's the largest number that can go into both 10 and 20? It's 10. In fact, I'm going to make it a negative 10 because both of my numbers are negative. So I'm going to factor out a negative 10. Negative 10 times what gets me negative 20? That's a positive 2. Now I have an x there, so I need to make sure I have an x in my parentheses. Negative 10 times what gets you negative 10? That's a positive 1. Negative 10 times 1 is negative 10. So that's the answer for number 1. Number 2, we want to factor 10n plus 80. Once again, I notice that both of these have a 10 in common. It's the largest number that can go into both of them. And now we ask ourselves, 10 times what gets you 10n? That's n, or if you want to put a 1 in, you certainly can. Maybe I will write that in red here. You can have a 1 there if you wish. It is not needed, though. So we've got 1 n in there. 10 times what gets you 80? That's a positive 8. So 10 times n plus 8. Again, that 1 n, that red 1, is completely optional. Number 3, negative 20 plus 4n. Now, only one of my numbers this time is negative, so I'm going to factor out a positive number instead. Now I look at 20 and I look at 4 and I ask myself, what's the largest number that can go into both of them? If you take 20 divided by 4, you'll see that 4 actually is the largest number that we can throw out there. So 20 divided by 4, that gets you 5. So I have a negative 5 right in here. And why a negative 5? Because my 20 is negative. 4 times a negative 5 gets you a negative 20. 4 times what gets you 4n? That's a positive 1. So really, all we need is a plus n. Once again, if you want to put a 1 in there, you certainly can. It is not necessary. Okay, number 4, negative 4p plus 12. Now, depending on what the answer key says, we can have one of two answers. I'm going to go over both, and in any case, I'll accept both of them. So, first, I'm going to factor out a positive 4. Because once again, only one of my numbers is negative. So I'm going to factor out a positive 4. I'm left with a negative 1p plus 3. That's an acceptable answer. What if you wanted to factor out the negative 4? You could do that if you wanted to. Here's where it gets a little trickier, though. You would have to reverse all of your signs. So I'd have a positive p and a minus 3 here. Let's just check real quick to see which one's at the bottom. Negative p plus 3. So this answer right here, the purple one, is the one that they have, and that's the one that you should probably go with. Number 5, we've got a negative 3m squared plus 5m. Both of them have just the m in common. So I don't need to factor out a variable at all. So I'm going to factor out the m. I'm going to throw it outside my parentheses. Now that little 2, remember, that indicates that there are 2 m's in that negative 3. I've got one of them on the outside of my parentheses. I need to make sure I have the other one inside the parentheses. So I've got a negative 3m right here. Now this 5 only has 1 m with it, and I've only got 1 m on the outside of my parentheses. So I can just say plus 5. And there we go. Number 6, kind of the same thing here. Both of them have an n in common. So I'm going to factor out an n. I've got two of them right here. I've got one on the outside of the parentheses, so I need to make sure I put the other one inside. I've got one in with my 2n right there. I've got one right there. So all I need is a plus 2 there. There we go. We got 4 more here. 7 and 8, we need to factor out both a number and a variable. Let's start with the number. What's the largest number that can go into both 20 and 12? You can try 2, yeah, but you can go a little bit larger. In fact, we can say 4 is the largest number. And that's just a matter of dividing both of them by a number and see if you get a good answer. So both of these also have an x. So I'm going to factor out an x. So when I factor 4x out of 20x squared, let's focus on the number first. 4 times what is 20? In other words, take 20 divided by 4, and you'll get 5. So we have 5 left in there. 2x's into 20x squared. 1x on the outside of the parentheses, so I need 1x right there. So 5x. 12 divided by 4 gets you positive 3. I've got 1x in the 12x. My x is already out here when I factor it, so I'm good. So that's factored form. 16 and 20. What's the largest number that can go into both of them? Once again, you'll see it's 4. Now, did I miss something? I did. Both of them also have a v. Don't forget that. So 4 times what gets you 16? That's another 4. This 16 only has one v with it, correct? Correct. I've got one v on the outside of my parentheses, correct? Correct. So we're there. This 20v squared has 2 v's. So right away, I know I'm going to have a v in there in my parentheses because I've got one right there. I've got to make sure I've got 2 total right down here. 20 divided by 4 is positive 5. So there we go. Factored form right there. Now, number 9 and number 10. Here we have 3 terms, but we're only going to factor out a number. Why just a number? Because if you look at each of those terms, do all of them have an a? The answer is no. This one and this one have an a, but not that guy, not that 2. So we're just going to factor out the largest number out of all 3 of them. And you'll see that it's actually just plain old 2. When I factor a 2 out, 2 times what is negative 4? That's a negative 2. And I have a squared left in there because I didn't factor out an a, remember. 2 times what is 2a? That's a positive 1a. So really all you need is positive a. If you want to put that 1 there, you certainly can. Again, not necessary. 2 times what is negative 2? That's a negative 1. So that's number 9, factored out, all ready to go. Number 10, last one, negative 9n squared plus 15n minus 3. Again, not all of them have an n, so we're only going to be factoring out a number. So the largest number that can go into all 3 of them is actually 3. When we factor out a 3, 9 divided by 3 is 3, so I have a negative 3 n squared. 15 divided by 3 is 5, so I've got a 5n. Negative 3 divided by 3 is negative 1. So that's the answer key for the worksheet that you got. If you're confused on any of the answers, let me know. Shoot me an email. We can Zoom. If you are good to go, then I'm just going to leave you to it. So thank you guys for watching, and we will catch you in the next video.